Joining for more on this, National Farmers Federation President Fiona Simson, thanks for your time. Your organisation has backed the approach on Australia not backing down over several key factors. What about the sort of threat to walk away by the end of the year if the offer doesn't improve? Do you back that approach?
Well, look, this is an agreement, Tom, that, I know I've personally been involved since its inception in 2018. So we've been working very hard on this, and certainly it offers a lot of opportunities for both the EU and Australia. But at some point, it has to come to the pointy end. We do want the deal to absolutely succeed. We do want to be able to reach agreement. And so at this stage, we say, let's come back to the table. Let's give it a little bit of time, and then let's get back to the table. And I'm sure that we can actually reach agreement, whether it's by the end of the year, whether it's a couple more months. The EU Commission actually enters into an election period shortly, and we'll have a whole new commission. So whether it's the end of the year or whether it's a little bit after that, let's just keep at the table, let's keep talking together, and let's keep working through some of the things that we have in common and some of the opportunities for both partners.
Sounds like a nightmare having to restart things. So what the Minister has said about this, do you see it as just being realistic, that it's not saying we'll never do a deal, but you have to have an end point to sort of intense negotiation, and at that point you say, look, come back to us if you're going to compromise on any of these areas, respectfully we'll take a breather. Is that what you see it as, rather than a sort of threat, I guess?
Oh, look, I think Minister Farrell has been very, very good in terms of his approach to this. I don't see it as starting again. What I do see is that we've come to a point where we have reached agreement on some things, but there's still quite a long way to go on others. Free trade agreements are about partnerships. They're about preferential access. It's about being, commercially positive for people who and exporters who want to enter into that market. And on some of the opportunities that have been presented, we're still a long way from that. Now, that doesn't mean that we have to start again. It does mean that we've identified some of those challenges that we quite honestly probably always knew were going to be there. But let's see how we can work through them together, and let's see whether we can reach an agreement, which we hope we can.
The potential benefit, I mean, is it somewhat limited? It's a long way away. I guess it's a pretty wealthy block of countries. So is it perhaps not necessarily a massive range of things that would be sent that way, but it could be a high value overall?
That's exactly right, Tom. It's a market that is a long, long way from Australia, and we have a lot of markets right on our doorstep in Asia, and some of those markets, of course, growing all the time. But it is a market for a certain type of produce that consumers particularly are seeking in the EU. Australian beef, Australian lamb is highly sought after because of its quality, because of its sustainability credentials. Same with our sugar, same with our rice, same with our dairy products. And so whilst it'll probably never be a high volume market for us, it's certainly one that, as you say, could be high value and will suit some producers in terms of what they produce. At the moment, there's lots and lots of EU products coming our way, and we just want to make sure that we can send some their way as well, should the opportunity and the consumers, desire those sorts of products. And at the moment, in terms of what's on the table for us, that's just not there. And, some of the conditions around which we could deliver those products are not as good as they are offering to other countries, and really are just not taking our industry forward in any way, shape or form.
You mentioned the sustainability, for example, of Australian lamb. Will there be a limitation on some of the things that are sent like that to the EU? It's an area very conscious of reducing emissions, and it's a long way to ship something. Will that sort of necessitate the shipping industry being a lot lower in emissions? I know there's stuff around sail technology, sort of going back to the future on that.
Well, these sorts of technologies are developing all the time. What we do know in terms of lamb is that New Zealand, currently has a 125,000 tonne amount that they can deliver into the EU, and over 7 years, that's actually going to grow to 163,000 tonnes. So that's the sort of amount that, we're looking at being comparable to. And if New Zealand can do it sustainably, they're down here too in the Southern Hemisphere. So we think that we can, we really like that opportunity as well.
What do you think of what we might compromise on? There's been a lot of talk around the so-called geographic locators. So would you be comfortable if we had to sell Australian style feta rather than just feta?
Look, we have a really great heritage here in Australia with some of our Italian and Greek, Spanish and other producers who have grown some of these products and made some of these products for many, many years. So that's a really sensitive one. I think the EU sought preferential access over nearly 166 products and 50 of which are produced in Australia. So that is one of the sensitive ones. We do have to come to some sort of agreement that's not going to impose a huge cost on Australian producers. I think currently, if we look at some of those products and the impact that some of those limitations could have, you're talking about $70, $90, $100 million cost to the Australian producers. And we don't want to do that. We have a proud heritage here.
Don't you just have to write Australian style feta and as long as that reputation's all right, you'll still sell it in the EU?
Doesn't sort of have the same ring to it. Crumbly white cheese in brine, for example, doesn't have quite the same ring to it. And of course, producers in Australia who are using the name feta have certainly had, the use of that term for many and have built up massive brand followings with some of their labels, and they would have to change all those things. So I'm sure there's a middle point in here with some of these sorts of discussions, but we just haven't found those yet.
All right. Fiona Simson, appreciate your time. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thanks so much, Tom.